tend to get this question from women more often, and they ask me, Coach Daisy, what do I do with my triggers? How can I get my husband to stop triggering me? How do I handle, what do I do when my husband triggers me? How do I handle my triggers? And this one's really a major topic for me because it's something that I dealt with for a long time. If you go and take a look further back in my YouTube video history, you will find that I did a video around emotional immaturity. And I was putting my hand up and saying that this is something that I dealt with a lot. And so being easily triggered, not knowing how to handle my triggers, not having the right mindset or perspective when it came to triggers was a massive deal for me, a massive deal in my relationship, and was something that really caused a lot of problems until I started to understand it in the different way that I want to talk to you about during this video. If you are somebody who recognizes that you keep getting triggered in your relationship and you know that it is negatively impacting the dynamics between you, the connection between you and how your partner feels, as well as how you feel, then this definitely is the video for you. I want you to stick around because we're definitely going to address what triggers are, but also I want to shift your mindset around what their purpose is. And in fact, by the end of this video, you're going to have a completely different name for triggers, and you're going to handle them in a completely different way, a way that is going to cause you to grow personally, and also it's going to cause your relationship to be enhanced, more deeply connected, and drastically reduce a lot of the conflict that you're having. So stick around. Now, like I said, this is something that I dealt with a lot. Let me tell you, back in the day, I would blame Mr. C for my triggers. And back then that made sense to me because I am triggered based on what you did. Like if you never did that, I wouldn't be here triggered, right? If you never said that thing, I wouldn't be here triggered. If you did do that thing that I needed you to do, I wouldn't be here triggered, right? It was always his fault. How I felt during the day, how I was going to show up, how productive I would be, what I achieved, just how I felt going through a particular day would be based on whether I was triggered at some point during that day or not. And it was always going to be based on what my husband did. Poor Mr. C, he didn't even realize that I'd given him that amount of power, that literally he controlled how I felt, what emotional state I was going to operate in during the day, and therefore how that was going to impact my day. Like I handed him over that huge amount of power on a plate, whether he requested it or not, which by the way, he never did. And that's what so many of us are doing when we're like, boom, I'm triggered based on what you did or what you said or what you didn't do and what you didn't say. And that leads me to just making sure that we're all clear on what triggers are. So triggers are an intense emotional response to something, an object. It might be to a memory, but in the case of relationships, it's usually down to what your partner did, didn't do, said, didn't say. So maybe you got your hair done and you held this expectation that your partner was going to compliment you and love on you, and they didn't that day. That might trigger an emotional response of feeling unseen or uncared for. Your reaction might be to get angry, to get upset, to get moody, to withdraw. You would have an emotional response to it, and that would be what we call your trigger. And it's so interesting to me also how we claim certain things. These are my triggers, right? We have this ownership over them. It's like we want to carry them in a bag along with us because they are mine. And I think if you want to change anything, it is that concept of choosing to carry all these triggers. But let's park that for a moment. And now that we know what triggers are, let's talk about what their true purpose are, because this is where I think I was getting it completely wrong back then. And it's what I believe many of you are missing in this area as well. Like, if you can really understand what the purpose of these triggers are, then you can start to change how you view them, what you do with them, and how you behave on the back of them, like how you respond to them. Now, in order to understand the purpose of triggers, I want us to do something. Let's change the name. Let's call them alerts, right? And when you think about an alert, it's warning signs, and it's like these. I see these sirens going off and this loud noise, like I don't know about maybe that's for an ambulance or something, but it's something to draw your attention, right? It's an alert. Now, the first thing that I want you to understand is, who is this alert for? Is it an alert for your partner, or is it an alert for you? Now, like me back then, you're probably like, well, it's to alert my partner. It's to alert them that they have done something wrong. They said something that has upset me, or they didn't do something or didn't say something. It's for them. And if that's what you think, I want to challenge that thought. I want to challenge that thought. And I want to put it to you that the purpose of these triggers, or what we're now going to see them as, are alerts. The purpose of these alerts are to bring attention to you, for you to look inward towards you. It is to alert you that I'm uncomfortable, or I'm unhappy with this, or I haven't healed from this, or I still haven't forgiven this area, or I need to put a boundary around this, or this is something I really do need to let go, or this is something I need to grow from, get better at, learn about, do some self-reflection around. It is an alert for you to address something, right? And let me tell you, most of the times it is to address something within you, because you don't have control over your partner. And so this alert is saying, hey, is there something you need to work on here? Is there a level of confidence and self-esteem that you need to develop? Are there things that you need to forgive and let go and move on? Are there things from the past that are still haunting you and dictating how you show up today? But also, are there things that actually you've brushed under the carpet for a long time, and it's time to talk about them and address them? Or you know that there's a boundary that needs to be set here and you've avoided doing it. Now's the time to set the boundary. It is an alert for you. And if you consider that that is the purpose. So let's go with the idea that your partner has done something and it has given you the instant response of anger. The anger is an alert. It's like, woo, 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 you are angry. Now, first of all, if you choose to stay in that anger for a prolonged amount of time, that is your choice, because the anger only came to bring awareness to you. It didn't come to chill and have dinner with you and stay for the rest of the week. It was just, hey, I need you to be aware of this, or I want to bring your attention to this. So the anger came and you felt it. What you would have normally have done is acted in that anger, and you would have blamed your partner, and you would have looked outwards for the responsibility of this feeling that you have. Your anger would have dictated how you respond to whatever your partner has done. I feel angry, I'm going to behave angrily, right? And I'm going to behave angrily for a prolonged amount of time because it's not my fault and it's my trigger and you triggered it. But when you consider that the purpose isn't just to put you in an emotional state so that then you can blame your partner, but rather the purpose is to alert you, okay, I'm angry. Thanks for letting me know that this is something that brings such a strong emotional reaction. Now, my responsibility in this, now that I have the alert, is to inquire. And that is to inquire of myself. Why has this angered me? Why has this raised such an emotional response? What is it trying to highlight within me? What is the true feeling that I have? Now, I want to give you a personal example of this. It's one that I always go to because it was so clear to me that in that moment, I really could have just done what I usually do, back to default setting, and just blamed everything that I was feeling in that moment on my husband because he had triggered me. But I had started to practice what I'm teaching, what I'm preaching, and it was so empowering. So it was back in COVID days when we were locked in. I was going to say locked up. That's what it felt like. And I had put on a whole ton of weight, but I was ignoring it. I was very uncomfortable within my skin, but I was pushing it to the back of my mind. I really wasn't thinking about it. I was carrying on business as usual and just not acknowledging any of my emotions or true feelings around this weight gain. I barely even admitted that I'd gained weight. Anyway, husband and I, we have this sort of jokey, banterish relationship. We are so used to having a good laugh together. My husband came downstairs and he said something. I genuinely can't remember what he said because all I remember is how I reacted. He said something that I took so personally, and I reacted so angrily, and he was completely lost, like bemused, confused, did not have a clue what he had done. And I was like, you're mocking me, you're making me feel bad about myself, you're the person that's supposed to make me feel better, and just because I've gained weight, you're doing this and you said that, and rah rah rah. Felt the anger, well, what I thought was anger, so acted angrily. But luckily, I paused in my tracks and I remembered that I am being alerted. And so I went off to a back room and I sat with myself and I self inquired. And I said to Daisy, what is this? Why did you respond with such anger? And I answered myself and I said, well, because he's mocking my weight gain. And so again, I asked myself, well, what did that make you feel? So you were angry, but underneath all of that, what did it make you feel? And I paused for a moment and realized that actually what I felt was embarrassed, what I felt was insecure about myself, and what I felt was uncomfortable. I felt very uncomfortable. And so that is what the anger was highlighting. It was drawing attention to actually you were embarrassed, you were uncomfortable, you felt very, very insecure. And so my next question was, then why? Why was you embarrassed? Why was you insecure? Why did you feel uncomfortable? And it was like, well, because I have gained weight, right? I have gained weight. And because I've gained weight, there is an underlying feeling of embarrassment and discomfort within my own skin and insecurity, and it's affecting my self-esteem. All these emotions that I've not allowed myself to even acknowledge, never mind address. But because this alert shone a light on it, I recognized that those are the emotions, those were the feelings, those were the thoughts that were truly at play here. So those were the emotions that were dictating how I received my husband's words and therefore how I responded. If I didn't have all those underlying emotions, I wouldn't have even received those words in that way and therefore would never have responded that way. And that's another major thing here, because a lot of the times with triggers, we're expecting our partners to know them, even when we're not even aware of them yet, right? We've not even acknowledged them, but we expect our partners to be aware, and we respond to them as if they should have known all of these things. And what it is like for your partner is literally like living in a minefield, like a field that is full of hidden bombs. And he's just walking through the field, and every now and again, boom, it blows, boom, it blows, boom, it blows, and he never knows where they are. Can you imagine what that is like for your partner? The fact that they would have to be walking on eggshells every day. And this is maybe why you're finding that they have withdrawn, they don't get too involved, they don't engage too much in conversation, or they avoid spending time with you. Maybe it's because it's a risk. They never know where these triggers, these bombs are going to go off. And so when you start to practice seeing these triggers as alerts, a couple of things is going to happen. Number one, you are going to get to know yourself. You're going to discover who you are. You're going to heal in areas. You're going to get to the root of what's really going on within you and address them. On top of that, you're going to create a space in your relationship that feels a lot more free and open. Your hidden emotions aren't going to be dictating how you view things, how you receive things, and therefore how you respond. But rather, you're going to deal with the root. And on top of that, because you're going to pause and ask yourself some questions, you're going to give space for wisdom and clarity. And now I want to say this. I'm not trying to say that every time you get triggered or you have an emotional response that it is always your fault and it's always about you. No, let's be real. There are times when our partners do some crazy stuff that really it is them and it is their fault. But when you practice seeing triggers as alerts and you first ask yourself what is going on here, you can really give yourself the opportunity to get clear on what the real issue is, therefore what you want, and how you're going to address it with your partner. Because you and I know that before, when it was I'm triggered, you were just feeling the emotion of anger, acting in anger. So you feel it, you act it, and there was no space for, well, what is the conclusion here? What's the objective? What am I trying to achieve? Right? There was no space for clarity. And so that's how you ended up in these World War III arguments that went from 0 to 100 really quickly and still didn't end up with any resolution. And so when you practice seeing triggers as an alert, it's going to give you the space to not just feel the emotion and act, but pause and ask yourself, what is really going on here? And if you discover that it's underneath all of it, it's about you, then you can do something about it. And if it's more about, well, I need to address this with my partner, at least when you do, you're going to be addressing it with clarity and with the conclusion in mind. In my next video, I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step approach to the alert system so that you can really start to practice handling your triggers in this way. And when you do, what you will find is that not only do you slash your conflicts in half, if not more, you're going to be feeling less and less triggered. And when you do feel triggered, the impact is going to be a lot less dramatic. In the meantime, you're going to be growing, healing, addressing stuff, and creating this great relationship with your partner where they also don't have to feel as nervous and afraid as they were being around you. I hope that helps. If it has, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're aware of every time I drop a video, and I'll see you in the next one.